In the age of, well, today, we're striving for diversity in everything, which is absolutely great. Straight white cis men have dominated all forms of media for far too long, and this has caused a substantially heteronormative outlook to pour into all of our lives, as life imitates art, which causes an immense number of issues. These issues have surfaced to the mainstream in recent years, so faceless corporations are desperately trying to prove they're woke and progressive by putting queer characters into their films. And when I say queer, I really only mean gay, because although they're pushing so hard for diversity, they're still forgetting to include so many people. The majority of queer characters on screen are just homosexuals, because they are still being written by straight cis people who see the world as black and white, i.e. straight or gay, and they don't bother to research anything beyond that. They just do the bare fucking minimum to profit from us. Or they heavily insinuate they're gay, because God forbid we have gay kids on screen. Oh, that would just confuse them. Won't someone think of the children? We hear gay and bisexual being thrown around constantly in regards to character sexualities, but we never hear about asexuality. And the reason for that is because it's not featured in anything. And if life imitates art, people are met with the crisis of not knowing who they are because they don't see anyone experiencing something similar, so they just assume they're broken. The almost non-existent asexual representation has led to many people thinking there's just something wrong with them their whole lives, making them miserable and may even lead to corrective rape situations. And this is why we need more asexual representation, to prevent people from literally killing themselves and finding themselves in places they don't want to be in. And to also teach anyone who isn't aspec that these people do exist and can help them realize. So let's look at the openly asexual characters in mainstream media. Okay, so, that's it. So there is only one openly asexual character in mainstream media, and that character is Todd Chavez from BoJack Horseman. An incredible show that I wish I saw a lot sooner. And not just because it likely would have helped me realize that I'm asexual instead of finding it out myself, but because it is easily the best animated show of all time. Even better than SpongeBob, which series creator Steven Hillenburg, may he rest in peace, actually said that he considers SpongeBob to be asexual. But I don't count this as asexual representation, as it was never said in the show, and he just said this to tone down theories that SpongeBob is gay, because apparently boys can't be straight and into feminine stuff and really close friends with boys. Anyway, I feel that we should take a look at the only proper asexual representation in the mainstream media to see if it's even accurate. But before I do that, a spoiler warning for BoJack Horseman. I feel like you could watch this video first without having seen any of BoJack Horseman, and then watch BoJack Horseman, and like your experience will be perfectly fine. I don't think this video will ruin your experience of the show, but if you want to go into it knowing literally nothing, then yeah, don't watch this video first, I guess. It's your choice. You do you.
Back in the 90s, I was in a very famous TV show.
Todd's asexuality isn't alluded to until season 3, episode 2, which is a flashback episode.
This is a pop song. It's 2007.
Where we meet his high school friend Emily, who clearly has feelings for him, and asks if he likes anyone, to which he says,
I don't like anyone.
This could be interpreted as him being aromantic, which is the lack of romantic attraction, while asexual is lack of sexual attraction. But I'm not aro, and this is still something I relate to. Maybe that's because I'm demi-romantic, but considering the context of them being high school students who are always seen as just crazy horny bastards, it's safe to assume that a teenager asking this essentially means if there's anyone you find physically attractive and want to have sex with. So him saying no shows his asexuality. They later find themselves in a 7 minutes in heaven situation, and Todd is very clearly uncomfortable about kissing her. And this could be chalked up to first kiss nerves, which is what he says in the scene, but it's clear he just doesn't want to do it. And the reason he chalks it up to first kiss nerves is because he doesn't have that asexual representation in anything to know that feeling like this is normal. All he sees in films and TV, as I just said, are teenagers being depicted as people kissing kissing and fucking at every opportunity they get, so he thinks that he must be like that as well. We're taught that when you really like someone, you kiss them. So he ends up kissing Emily, his best friend, to fit into this notion. And while some aces are perfectly fine with kissing, I feel Todd really does just do this to fit in, as he is never seen doing it with any of his other romantic partners in future episodes. This progresses when Emily asks if they should do sex, which Todd also very clearly doesn't want to do. I'm sure most people are nervous about losing their virginity, but knowing he's confirmed to be asexual later on, this is obviously setting up that reveal. He unenthusiastically goes along with it, and it seems like this has never even crossed his mind because he doesn't know what to do.
Here I go. This is Todd. Doing sex.
Luckily, her dad comes home before anything happens and he's able to escape. And that's when I excitedly began the next episode, thinking we would get confirmation that Todd is ace, but we don't get any more of his identity unfolding until episode 5, where he reunites with Emily after all these years. Todd comes up with an idea for a ride-sharing app with only women drivers so women don't have to be worried about being perved on by men, and Emily wants him to elaborate on this idea and puts her arm on him for support. He worriedly looks down at her hand on his shoulder, which could be seen as him being a touch averse asexual and simply doesn't like that she's touching him, or he's worried that Emily still has feelings for him and he's scared this could lead to them in another bed together and wouldn't be able to use
I've never kissed anyone before
as an excuse. It could honestly be either. I think the creators intended the latter, as Todd nervously scratches his head and Emily doesn't maintain eye contact when doing this, which is like on every single top 10 signs top 10 signs your crush likes you lists. That's just a guess, I've never had to look at one of those lists before. They both say that they're not seeing anyone at the moment, which BoJack overhears and comes over to give Todd the keycard to their hotel room and insinuate Todd and Emily should go upstairs to bang. Todd is clearly very uncomfortable once again and reluctantly agrees to go up once he finishes his drink, which he does, but then says,
Cool, I'm just gonna get 1 or 2 more drinks and then we'll go check out that bed.
And nervously paces away. It eventually cuts to them at the room and Todd tries to sidetrack it by suggesting to dress up as ghosts, which Emily, slightly annoyed, declines to do. He tries multiple excuses to try and get out of this before finally cutting her off and slamming a door on her face. Emily is confused by this, as Todd clearly likes and cares about Emily, yet doesn't want to have sex with her. Due to the lack of asexual representation in the media, she can't notice that he's asexual and therefore may now think there's something wrong with her, when there isn't. This shows how it isn't just asexual people negatively affected by the lack of representation, but also allosexuals who are interested in asexual people. So now these people are stuck in a crisis, wondering if they're not good enough for the person they're in love with. So we got aces thinking they're broken in some way, as well as people of other orientations thinking they're broken too, all because of the lack of asexual representation. And look, I personally can't relate to this situation, as I've never been in a situation like this, but if I found myself in this situation and I didn't know I was asexual yet, this is exactly how I imagine I would react as well. The next big hint isn't until the 12th and final episode of the season, when they're having some ice cream together and Emily kindly asks what his deal is because she can't figure out if Todd likes her or not. So she asks if he's gay, to which he responds,
I'm not gay. I mean, I don't think I am, but I don't think I'm straight either. I don't know what I am. I think I might be nothing.
That really made me tear up, because this was essentially what my thought process was. While everyone else my age was constantly talking about sex, I just couldn't understand what was so captivating about it. So I came to the realization that I might be gay because I don't want to have sex with women. And then after a while you realize, oh wait, I don't want to have sex with men either. Oh, what the fuck? And although I had heard of asexuality because I remember watching a TomSka video when I was about 10, it's not like gay or bi where it's constantly being said, so it just slipped my mind. Especially because no one's ever done an actual explanation on it, so looking back now, I realize I had it confused with aromantic, which I'm definitely not. It's not taught in schools or shown in media. It's typically just the, yeah, some people are straight, some people are gay, with a quick flash in the pan mention of bisexuality and no distinction between romance and sex. So I spent ages so fucking confused and tormented until I suddenly remembered that asexuality was a thing. So I did some research and was just like, oh yeah, I guess I'm asexual. Much like Todd and many others, I spent so long thinking I was fucking nothing when I was something, but I didn't know the intricacies because we don't see it anywhere. Carrying on, in episode 1 of season 4, asexual is actually said out loud by Emily, like a true ally who likely did some digging after being
Tired of trying to figure out what Todd wants.
Todd says,
You don't need an app. Just hang out with me.
Todd, you're great,
What a way to end a sentence.
but I want a boyfriend who isn't asexual.
and hearing that just made me bawl. Just hearing it out loud in something this mainstream made me absolutely ecstatic, but this is also something that I deal with very often and get very sad about. The thought that I could find literally the perfect person who I love immensely and loves me back equally, but they're not asexual, so I can't be with them as I'd feel like I'm burdening them and stripping them of something they want. And this situation between Todd and Emily is very similar. When she calls him asexual, he reacts negatively, which could be due to internalized queerphobia as he would have been growing up when everyone was calling everything gay as a derogatory term, but if you've seen the show, I feel like you can agree that's not the case. He just isn't ready to label himself yet as he isn't 100% sure. By the end of episode 3, titled Hooray Todd episode, he is though.
I think I'm asexual.
Asexual what? Dynamo? Deviant? Harassment lawsuit waiting to happen?
No, asexual.
And before this, he says about Emily,
I don't know that I loved her. I don't think I'm allowed to be in love.
and that rings so true to my experience. I don't want to get into it because I'm still not entirely sure about it and I just don't feel comfortable talking about it. But yes, just yes. Whether or not Todd truly loved her or not can be debated, but let's just say he did. He's not sure if he did because society thinks love and sex is the same. It's taught that when you really, really like someone, you have sex with them. And Todd doesn't want to have sex with her, but he does really, really like her. But society says that's not love. When it is. People have normalized hookup culture and one-night stands saying that there can be sex without love, so why do people forget there can be love without sex? Also, him wondering if he's incapable of love is something I still ask myself constantly to this day. This line of dialogue perfectly articulates exactly what I felt and continue to feel as an asexual, and it is just so astonishingly relatable to me. This whole episode he had been saying he had a meeting to go to, and I was really hoping I knew what type of meeting it was, and then I saw the flag and I was just overjoyed. Like the title says, hooray, we now have an openly asexual character and I could not be happier. So let's see how his asexuality is explored throughout the rest of the show. Beforehand, I must note that at some point in episode 3, Todd finds himself on a catwalk and sets off a new fashion trend involving his trademark look. Okay, so in episode 12 of season 4, Yolanda, who was actually seen in the asexual meeting in episode 3, asks Todd out, at which point the camera zooms out to reveal everyone wearing his clothes. Now, although this is a funny visual gag that calls back to the previous episode, I feel there could be a deeper purpose to it than just that. This may have been done to show how this is the first time Todd has felt like everyone else does and finally fits in and no longer feels like an outcast due to his asexuality. After spending some time together, in episode 3 of season 5, they break up after realizing they don't really like each other and the only thing they have in common is that they're both asexual. This line of dialogue is exchanged.
I'm sure there's a guy out there for you whom's smart and accomplished and whom went to college.
And also doesn't want to have sex?
Yeah, probably.
But what if there isn't?
And I wept at this. This is something I've thought about a lot and it makes me really sad. And I appreciate the show didn't shy away from showing the darker sides of being asexual to allow other people to understand us better. Like I said earlier, I want to be with that person who gets just as much out of our relationship as I do, but the chances of that happening are so slim because although the figure is estimated to be higher than this, but people just can't recognize they are due to the lack of representation, only 1% of the population identify as asexual. So what the fuck are the chances of me finding someone who's perfect for me and is asexual? I can guarantee they are very low. So I'm scared that the moment I meet another asexual, I'm just gonna instantly latch onto them and fall in love with them, when really, I know I'll just end up falling in love with the idea idea of being with someone who's asexual and perfect for me instead of them, and I'll project all of that onto them and just settle, as even the chances of finding another asexual are quite low as well. And maybe this is the best possible outcome. And this is exactly what I rip into cishets for doing all the time, yet I'm scared I'll fall subject to this as well.
Nobody completes anybody. That's not a real thing. If you're lucky enough to find someone you can halfway tolerate, you sink your nails in and you don't let go, no matter what.
So what? I should just settle?
Yes, thank you. Exactly, settle. Because otherwise, you're just gonna get older and harder and more alone.
And I feel Todd and Yolanda's relationship demonstrates this. They were quick to be in a relationship as they're both asexual, and Yolanda is worried that the perfect guy for her isn't out there. Before we move on, I want to stay on Yolanda for a second. In episode 1 of season 5, Todd comes up with the idea for a dating app for asexuals, and Emily's current boyfriend asks,
why would asexuals want a dating app?
Well, not all asexuals are aromantic.
I just really like that the show took the time to explicitly debunk a common myth about asexuals, as this is what even I thought before I realized I was ace. That all asexuals don't want to date and can't develop romantic feelings for people. In episode 9, Todd comes up with an idea that menus should be made out of garlic bread, so once you order, your first course is ready straight away, and there's a chance this is alluding to the joke that all aces love garlic bread, and if that's the case, I find that funny. Okay, seriously though, later in episode 9, Todd and Emily are talking about the prospect of them dating as they're both each other's favorite person, and Emily inquires,
When I was putting the app together, I learned that some asexuals actually do have sex. Do you think that there's a chance?
Todd's reaction indicates that he is a sex-repulsed ace like I am, and seemingly most asexuals are, or at least on the ace subreddit, as people on there seem to often forget that sex-indifferent and sex-favorable aces are a thing, so I appreciate that once again the show took the time to acknowledge that grey aces and demisexuals are a thing, so they don't feel left out, and these people still count as asexual people as they're on the asexual spectrum. Doing a big jump to episode 7 of the 6th and final season, we meet Maud, whose voice actor Echo Gillette is actually asexual in real life. She's talking to a guy who's confused about how she went on a date with him but didn't have sex with him, wondering why she would go out on a date with him in the first place if she's not interested in sex.
Because I like you? But it's complicated.
And you're sure it's not a Jesus thing?
Fine, if it helps end this conversation, yes, it's a Jesus thing.
Maud is clearly asexual, and she just says it's a Jesus thing to shut him up because she most probably knows how exhausting it is to explain the intricacies of her asexuality to someone, and given this dude was expecting sex from a date, he'd likely be aphobic anyway and will act like she's weird for not wanting sex and do the whole, I bet I can change that, you just haven't had good dick yet. Which a lot of asexuals and homosexuals get a lot of, which is, I personally can't relate to this, but I do see a lot of memes on the ace subreddit surrounding this, and I'm sure if I ever reach a place in my adult life, big emphasis on the if, haha, I would say I'm asexual but don't see myself explaining every little thing, because they'd most probably get scared off. However, she may not even be aware she's asexual yet, and therefore not even know how to articulate it. I think it is the former though. Fast forward to episode 12, Todd is now Maud's boyfriend. There's not much to say here, it just makes me really happy to see. This is exactly what I want, just two bros chilling and snuggling up together while watching TV. Her mum, however, does say,
"Keep the door open, no funny business,"
which annoys Maud, and it could be for several reasons. Mum doesn't know she's ace, Mum does know she's ace but just doesn't understand it, or Mum doesn't know she's ace but is still annoyed at this stupid thing parents do, as if men and women will fuck the moment they have any privacy and do nothing else. Don't really know what to say about this, I just thought I should bring it up. And yeah, Todd and Maud eventually move in together, and their relationship is in a good place when the series comes to its amazing end. I think it's just great to see not only asexual characters, but asexuals in relationships with one another. To surmise, Todd's asexuality is pinpoint accurate, or at least to my experience and experiences I've been exposed to. And I also want to add that I really like that the main asexual representation is male, as several studies have found that an overwhelming amount of asexuals are female with barely any males. It appears that only 14% of asexuals are AMAB assigned male at birth, and this is obviously due to what is expected of the two main sexes. Gender norms say men are supposed to be sex-starved 24/7 24/7 and wants sex more than anything. Having sex is something to be celebrated if you're a man, but if you're a woman, it's not. So the reason why there are far less male aces is because people will consider them less than for not wanting sex, so they're scared to identify as asexual, if they even know what it is, thanks to fragile masculinity, as they won't be seen as cool or a player. I could not have said that more wise. So I think it's great the biggest asexual character is male because it will allow them to realize that it's not anything to be ashamed of and it doesn't make you any less of a person. So yes, this representation is great, but there is one thing that kind of bugs me about it, and that's how it reinforces the biggest asexual stereotype. That being that we're all childish freaks. You can't really hold this against them though, as Todd's whole character was that he was a goofball before they made the decision to make him asexual.
We'll get more muffins.
I'll get the muffins, and they're on me. I just found out I got $80 in the bank. I'm helping! Hooray!
So he wasn't a childish asexual, he was childish and asexual. Show creator Raphael Bob Waxberg has actually since said, looking back, part of what was telling me Todd was asexual was my own preconceived notions of what an asexual person acts like, some of which was based on harmful stereotypes. As when they started to write season 3 and therefore begin Todd's asexual journey, they hired an asexual to be a consultant to make sure they would do it justice. She said,
one stereotype is that we're very childlike and naive, and I was like, oh no. I didn't know, it's too late to change that. But other than that, I think we've tried to show a really three-dimensional side of it and to have multiple asexual characters, so Todd's not the only representation on the show.
So you can't really fault them for this, and you can tell they feel bad about it. It just kinda sucks the only openly asexual character accidentally and unintentionally reinforces that harmful stereotype Waxberg referred to. Despite this, yes, it's wonderful, and the writers should feel so proud knowing they really served the community well. Now we've spoken about the confirmed asexual character, I want to dive into some Due to the minimal representation we have, aces tend to project their asexuality onto certain characters and put into their headcanon that this character is in fact ace. So let's look at a few. Aloy from Horizon Zero Dawn is the biggest one, as there's actually evidence hinting towards that she's not just ace, but arrow ace. There's a character called Erend who clearly likes her and hints towards that by flirting with her, but Aloy doesn't even clock it, as if she's never thought about romantic relationships before. A lot of characters of all genders seem to flirt with her, and she never picks up on it. I really hope we get confirmation that she's arrow ace in the second game, Forbidden West, and this isn't just chalked up to her being too busy and determined to save the world to make time for relationships. Another video game character in a game incredibly similar to Horizon Zero Dawn is Link in Breath of the Wild. I back this up due to the fact that they intentionally designed him to be gender neutral with androgynous clothing to expand their market so all players would have an easier time connecting with Link. So not only will boys see an advert for it and choose to buy it, but girls will see an advert for it and choose to buy it as well. Which is nice and all, and I respect series producer AGI Anuma for doing this, but does this actually work? Like, I feel like if you have any empathy at all, you will be able to connect with someone who doesn't look like you. And although they made him appear gender neutral, he is still classed as male, which is a shame. They just can't come out and say he's non-binary because then the queer foes won't go out and buy the game. But in my headcanon, he falls under non-binary, and a great number of asexuals are non-binary. I also think he's asexual because he doesn't show any interest in it towards Mipha, who is the clear romantic interest for Link, nor does he do anything with Zelda, and typically with the male protector and damsel in distress dynamic, which Nintendo are actually really good at avoiding. It's just easier to word it like this. There's always some forced romance with the guy ending up having sex with her as if it's a reward for protecting her, but I think this is just good writing by having Link be a decent man, and also Nintendo sticking to their family-friendly rules by not insinuating anything sexual and therefore contaminating the purity of their games. And this is the same for Mario. In my headcanon, he is ace. Whenever he saves Peach, that's it. He doesn't expect anything in return from her. This could just be because he's one of the very few good men out there, or it's because he's asexual. No longer talking about video games, Merida from Pixar's Brave could be seen as aro ace due to her lack of interest to find a man and settle down. And unlike their most recent film, Luca, where they clearly wrote it with a queer subtext but turned down theories that they're gay despite the allegory being bright as day because queerbaiting generates more revenue for them, I think it's just because the character of Merida is supposed to subvert the princess stereotype, and this is therefore from a feminist viewpoint as it teaches little girls to not live their life by a man. So you can't really get mad if someone at Pixar declines the aspec interpretation because it's progressive in some other form, and I feel like getting confirmation that she is aro ace would kind of ruin the feminist narrative that it tries to shape. Another character that could be aro ace in another huge product owned by evil Disney is Nebula. Not once in any of the films does she express any interest in anyone. Similarly to Aloy, this could just be because she's focused on proving herself to be a worthy fighter and wants to project herself as an intimidating person and not reveal her soft side. But Karen Gillan, when asked what her sexuality was, said, "Oh, Nebula is asexual, no doubt about it." Okay, excuse the poor mic quality. Pretty much when I was researching for this video to see if she was ace in the comics, I came across this, whatever the hell this website is, I'd never heard of it beforehand, and that's where I got the information that Karen Gillan said this, but I could not find the video anywhere, so I asked if anyone could send me a link to it, and then I got this response as if that wasn't the first search term I would try, but I just hoped that I would be able to find it by the time it comes to editing. I still can't, so I asked again. From the looks of things, the person who made this post thinks that the video has been deleted since then. Like, they must have been like one of 5 people to see it in the whole world, because I cannot find any traces that this ever existed. Yeah, anyway, it's weird. What I did find in a very shitty interview is Pom Klementieff saying this.
I think my character is not really sexual.
So yeah, that is pretty interesting and just nice to hear, but I would really rather Mantis not be asexual, because similarly to Todd, she's the weird one, and it would just reinforce that stereotype even more. And also, I know Nebula is an alien as well, but Mantis is like full-on alien, and it just feels like, oh yeah, they'd make that alien asexual because sex is what makes us human, and obviously they're not human and that's why they're asexual. Like, how can you not interpret it like that? It would upset far more people than pleased. But if Karen Gillan actually did say this, depending on the amount of influence she has, it's possible that it could work its way into the films. Who knows? Anyway, back to the actual video now. I'm sorry. Another Marvel character is Yelena Belova. There was nothing in the most recent film I caught that suggests her being asexual, but she is asexual in some of the comics. And as much as I love Florence Pugh, I just found her to be annoying in the Black Widow film, so if they made her asexual, I'd automatically love the character as well. But knowing Disney, they'll just pretend asexuality doesn't exist, or they'll hint at it in a throwaway line that could be cut out like they did with Valkyrie in Thor Ragnarok and the Onward police officer. Lastly, Lexi from HBO's Euphoria. This one is kind of hard to theorize about, as it really is kind of a reach and somewhat clashes with another theory saying she's lesbian. Pretty much everyone in this show is sucking and fucking, and she's the only one not. And also when Rue teaches her how to French kiss, she says,
Is this like really weird and uncomfortable for you?
This could indicate that she's an asexual who doesn't like kissing like Todd, or it's because she's a lesbian or bi or pan and into Rue but doesn't feel comfortable telling her yet. Or maybe it's just weird to kiss your best friend. I don't know. A lot of signs people say are her having a thing for Rue, I just read as her being a good friend. I would love for her to turn out to be asexual, and I think they're definitely insinuating she has a crush on Rue, so I hope they make her a homo-romantic asexual. I think that would work really well. Show creator Sam Levinson is clearly a very up-to-date individual. You can tell from watching Assassination Nation or Malcolm and Marie.
Does the male gaze exist if the filmmaker's gay and not straight? And to what degree? I mean, what if they're asexual? What if they're transitioning and you don't even know it?
Now, this next show isn't mainstream, but it's something I love, so just let me talk about it, please. Why Are You Like This came out earlier in the year, and it's a fantastic show. It's essentially Always Sunny, but the characters are incredibly woke, and it's co-written by some of my favorite comedians. One of which, Naomi Higgins, who also plays the main character Penny, said while filming an episode of Gamey Game, a show that is ridiculously underviewed. I'm constantly rewatching and listening to it as it's just hilarious.
What are they called, creepers or something? I don't like them. They're fast and they go on the ground.
Right. Yuck.
That's why you don't like dogs.
Yeah.
Hard to shoot.
Anyway, she said in regards to Penny,
Could still make her asexual if we feel like it, I think.
which goddamn I fucking hope they do. I didn't even read her as being asexual on my first watch, as I've watched all 6 episodes 3 times in hopes Netflix and ABC give it another season, but it is clear that she very well could be. She's the only character who doesn't engage in some form of sexual or romantic relationship in the show and doesn't express any interest in doing so. Okay, those are some potential ace characters in the media that I've consumed, and well, it's nice to speculate, especially when you're so starved for representation, but all of this is basically meaningless. You can project asexuality onto anyone who doesn't have a sex scene or is seen talking about sex, which in kids programming is basically everyone. Pan and bi people are lucky because, unless stated otherwise, every character ever could be bisexual or pansexual. So yeah, I feel Aloy could get confirmation, if not in the game itself, at least by someone at Guerrilla Games. Lexi very well could get confirmation for being ace, and Penny is practically confirmed as being ace, but we may not see it in the show if enough of you don't watch it on Netflix, because it's a great show made by entertainers who I truly love and admire, and it deserves more attention. The other ones though, I don't see them being confirmed as asexual anytime soon. Hopefully sync up the audio. What up, Goofy Goobers? We're here in the oh, the batteries might die in a minute. What up, Goofy Goobers? We're here in the unscripted room. Pretty much, I've gotten to the epilogue and not really liking it. I kind of pulled a Tarantino and just make the video a cipher for every thought I've ever had, and so now I'm doing what Tarantino doesn't do, and I'm taking out what isn't necessary. But to briefly sum up what I said in the original script, I was just talking about how representation across all fronts is pretty, you know, it's not great, you know, because we need more queer representation that has actual variety, because at the moment it's just sad Oscar bait drama, hypersexualized art house film that fetishizes lesbians, or it's a film where the main conflict of the film is, oh no, I'm gay, my family don't know. That's the main conflict of the film. They will find out by the end. That's the whole film, and it's boring as shit. You know, there's more to being queer than coming out, because me personally, I'm actually against coming out. And you know, that led to another tangent about how good Euphoria is and how amazing Hunter Schafer is and how she's been able to give good trans representation in that show. Like, the whole reason I made this video is because I'm most well equipped to talk about asexuality, and that is the focus of the video, and you know, there are people who can talk about that far better than me. I also touched upon erasure of asexuality. Shows like Game of Thrones, they haven't explicitly said asexual, but they've done this.
But I was never interested in girls either.
What then?
Nothing.
Everybody is interested in something.
Not me.
Which I like, because it doesn't make a big deal out of it, and I know that if Disney ever have the fucking balls to have an asexual character in one of their films, they will make the biggest fucking deal out of it, and it's just like, my existence is not a political statement. Stop fucking acting like it is. So I like that it is subtle, but at the same time, never saying asexual. I feel like never labeling it, which I know they did for realism. You know, labels aren't everything, but at the same time, it is nice to be able to label something, and I feel like asexual people watching that who don't know they're asexual yet. Pretty much what I'm trying to say is, I don't want a character where their whole fucking character is that they're the token asexual character. But at the same time, it gets the message out, and it's informing people, so I don't really give a shit. But yes, I would prefer something more subtle, although I would want them to actually say asexual out loud. So, you know, they need to find a nice balance between, hey guys, I'm asexual, and I don't really have an interest in that person. You know, and that's what I love specifically about Todd's, is that they do a nice way of balancing it, because they know that it isn't in public consciousness as much as homosexuality. They do a nice job of teaching the audience what asexuality is, but then also not making a huge deal out of it, and just being like, hey, Todd's asexual, this is what asexuality is, now let's move on. Oh, asexuality popped up again because it's Todd. That's a part of his identity. Obviously it will come up again. I don't know. Hopefully you can understand what I'm trying to say, because I can't, and this is why I script my stuff beforehand. Yeah, I think that's pretty much what I said, summed up relatively briefly, and what's the opposite of eloquently? I'm trying to think of the word. Not eloquently. Wow. I'm an English language student, just letting you know. Yeah, I think that's it, but before I go, this microphone isn't even plugged in. I've duped all of you. I've just been using it as a prop. The real microphone is this little black thing in the corner. That's the pop filter. This is the real microphone. So what have we learned? You cannot trust me. Okay, back to the other room now. Oh god. And before anyone comments, oh, what about the nun in Who Be Halloween? She's openly asexual, you didn't talk about her. I didn't include that because it was an awful throwaway joke.
I'm asexual, but that girl's making me hella horny.
This was clearly written by someone who doesn't understand asexuals. Asexuals can have high libido as well. I think the joke is supposed to be, imagine Julie Bowen was so hot she can convert an asexual to allosexual, but it's been made from misinformation, and I feel like most idiots who watched that film would most probably just think that the joke is that they're asexual. To me, it just felt invalidating. What definitely is invalidating that one of you may bring up is that episode of House MD, which had an openly asexual man. But that was absolutely just, that was ridiculous. I cannot believe that. I won't fully explain it, but pretty much this dude is like, I have an asexual patient, and their husband is asexual too. And House is like, nah, that's bullshit. Sex is what makes us human. Turns out the husband just had hyperactive sexual desire disorder, and his wife just lied about being asexual to not upset him. What the fuck? The show just said asexuality is a load of BS. It's amazing to think that we went from nullifying asexuality to legitimizing it in 5 years. From using it as a laughingstock to it being a part of someone's identity that is fully respected. We made that huge leap in 5 years. So hopefully we'll be able to keep making those in the years to come as we see more and more asexual characters being comfortable with their asexuality. Like Todd eventually is in BoJack Horseman. A show that you should definitely watch. It's a show that feels so wholly unique and surreal, but is deeply rooted in reality, so you can't help but form a bond with these characters as their arcs unfold. The art style isn't the best, but it's still good. Its humor is very funny while also being well thought out. Its social commentary and how it rolls into the comedy is just excellent and perfectly balanced.
But has the concept of women having choices gone too far? We've assembled this diverse panel of white men in bow ties to talk about abortion.
And it is also exceptionally poignant because the emotions the characters convey are so raw. It's practically a perfect show in my eyes given how it juggles everything, but there's never ever a wince-worthy moment that you're worried they might not catch one of the balls. It's top-notch all throughout, and on top of that it has the only good asexual representation featured in mainstream media, which automatically makes it the best television show anyway. Okay, I think that's all the main stuff said. If I'm factually incorrect about anything or miss any key information, then please inform me, and if there are any fellow aces out there watching this, comment your thoughts on the representation we have. I'd be intrigued to see if you think Todd's representation isn't good. But that's all for now, so thank you for watching, and I'm off to do my extra shift at work now, so goodbye.
I wish someone had told me it's okay to be lonely. I wish someone had told me it's okay to be
Do you get the joke? The joke is that I went broke from being so woke. I don't think you get it. Do you need me to explain the joke to you?